Welcome. Good to see all of you here. We are in Adulting Week number 3. This is super exciting. I'm excited to be here with you tonight. If it's your first time here at Vintage, welcome. If I haven't met you before, my name is Scott. I work here at the chapel, work with high school students, work with senior adults. Going to be a part of our Niagara Falls campus as that launches, so getting really excited for that. Looking forward to being a part of that. And if you are here at Vintage every week, it's good to see you again. Glad that you could be here with us this week in week 3 of adulting. We've been learning about a lot of great stuff, and this week we're going to dive into a topic that affects every single one of us, and it's the idea of control. The idea of wanting to and going after control. Now, I don't know if many of you thought the way I did growing up, but I imagine some of you and many of you actually did have some similar thoughts that I had when I was growing up. And one of those thoughts that I had, that I imagine that you probably also had, was I can't wait until I grow up, because when I grow up, I can do whatever I want. I can do whatever I want to do when I grow up. No more seat belts, no more bedtime, no more of these bells ringing in schools telling me where to be and when to get there. I can do whatever I want when I grow up, and I won't be living in this house where there are these people who keep telling me what to do and keep asking me questions about my life that I don't want to talk to them about right now. And so one day when I'm an adult, when I'm grown up, I won't have to deal with these things anymore, and I will be able to do whatever I want to do. Some of us remember having that thought when you were growing up, and then all of a sudden you got out of the house and you became an adult, or you didn't even get out of the house, but you became an adult and you kind of realized, oh wow, that wasn't as true as I thought it was. I can't do whatever I want. I may not have to respond to a bell in school anymore, but there is a professor who wants me to be in class on time, and I have to hand in assignments on time, or I have a job and I have to respond to a professor on time, or I have a job, I have to respond to my boss on time. I have to respond to my boss on time. I'm a professor, even though school does feel like work a lot of the time, and it feels like a job, and but anyways, I have to respond to this boss on time. I have to respond to my professor on time, or whatever that looks like, or maybe you start to pick up bills, and I have to pay car insurance now, and I have to make sure that is paid on time. And we thought that, oh man, I would have more control, but we go out and we become adults, and we begin adulting, and we find that the control just gets placed in other areas, and we don't have as much control as we thought we would. It's funny that in growing up, we wish that we didn't have a bedtime, but then we become adults, and all we want is more time in bed. Because our life is being pulled in a million different directions, and we're exhausted, and this is what happens to us. I remember I began to experiment with adulting. The experiment actually began for me in June of 2012. I graduated high school, and as soon as I graduated high school, I drove up here to Western New York, and I began to live at this place called Circle C. Some of you are familiar with it, about an hour south of here. Yeah, hey, if you love it, that's great. I love it too. And I began to live at Circle C, and I thought, hey, this is the life. I'm good, because when I graduated, somebody wrote me a very generous check for $700. And I was like, $700? I've never seen $700 in my life. And you know what? $700, I'm going to be living the high life now. I'm living in Delavan. I'm driving a Crown Victoria, which guzzled gas, but I didn't realize that whole concept at the time of paying for gas, and that would cost me a lot of money. And so I get up here, and I'm driving all over the place. So I have $700. I can go out to eat. I can do what I want. And then within 2 weeks, $700 turned into $10. And then I realized that controlling money was not as easy as I thought it was. And I was that guy for a number of years who was, I just can't go out to eat tonight because I have like $5 in my checking account right now. I'm trying to pay for school, trying to pay for gas, and I have $5. And controlling money was not as easy as I thought it would be. When my parents used to be like, we don't have the money for that right now, Scott. No, you just think you don't have the money for that right now. You have the money to take me out right now, and I want you to, and I need this food, and I need you to buy me something. But then I realized controlling money was not as easy as I thought it was. We've had this feeling before. And time, we can never seem to get control of our time either. I can't ever seem to get a pattern. I even tried listening to different podcasts. I was listening to this podcast from this guy named Daniel Pink, and he wrote a book called When. And in this book called When, he talked about how we all have different times a day when we're most efficient with our work. And some of us have peak times and trough times. I'm like, I'm going to start doing my best work at my peak time. And then somebody at work is like, hey, I need to schedule a meeting with you during this specific time, and that time happens to be during my peak time. And now I no longer have control of my time, and I thought I would have control of my time, and I become less efficient than I thought I could be. Has this happened to you before? You've lost your time. Maybe, I'm in school, like many of you still. And I have this love-hate relationship with people who interrupt my study time. Have you felt that before? You know what I mean? Like, people who interrupt your study time, you love them because you don't want to study, but you hate them because you need to study. And you need to, oh, man, I thought I could figure out time management, but we really can't figure it out because people continue to interrupt our time. And we have all these things and these systems put in place, but we can't control it. And as we continue to live in life, we always think, oh, the next season, I will have more control. And ultimately, this search for control, this desire for control is us thinking, when I get to that season and I'm in control, I can create my best life. Because I know my priorities, I know my needs, I know what I want and when I need it. And so if I'm in control, I can create the best life possible for myself. But then we realize we have less control than what we thought we did. This recently happened to my wife and I. When we first got married a few years ago, we were in this apartment, and a lot of people hated on our apartment, but I didn't mind our apartment. I even say to my wife sometimes, I miss the days at 627 Englewood Avenue, and she says, I do not miss the days at 627 Englewood Avenue. I thought it was, it was homey in some ways, but it was also disgusting in some ways. And we were in this apartment, and we were driving home from Christmas with my family in Virginia. And we get a call from the landlord. And the landlord was like, hey, there were some plumbing problems in the building. And these plumbing problems caused the sewage to back up into your toilet. And then it exploded out of your toilet all over the bathroom floor and has now leaked into your kitchen and into your guest room. And I thought, I'm just glad I'm in the car right now and I don't have to deal with this. And I might just turn around and go back to Virginia, actually. But I didn't do that. But we got back, and it turned out our landlord and our neighbors had cleaned up this entire disgusting mess for us. Our apartment reeked of bleach. But there were some nasty things throughout our apartment. And so we thought to ourselves, you know what we should do? We should get a home. Because then we won't have to deal with these types of things. Home ownership is the biggest lie of control in the entire world. Because your landlord may be lazy, your landlord may be this or that, or you may have issues with your landlord raising your rent, but at least your landlord is responsible for your problems. When you own a home, you become responsible for your problems. And within the first few months of us owning our home, we decided to buy a house in Kenmore, and Kenmore is apparently a swamp, and our basement flooded within the first few months of owning our home. And we thought, in the next season, we won't have these problems we have at the apartment. We can take control. We can own a house. It'll be a nice house, too. We won't have things that flood. We won't have things that overflow. But of course, our basement flooded. Why? Because there's this lie called control. And control tells us that in the next season, you will have more of me. And in the next season, you can figure this out, and then you can navigate your life to the best of your ability. And we think that one day we can grasp and go after more and more control, and we can navigate this, and we can figure it out. But at the end of the day, we all find that control is just this big lie, waving in front of us, pulling us forward, and we never quite have the control that we thought we would. But thankfully for us, Jesus had something to say about this. Jesus, who we believe to be the smartest, wisest, and most brilliant person to ever live. He was God in the flesh, and when he stepped into the pages of human history, he had something very valuable for us. He had something very valuable to say to us about control. You see, Jesus was traveling along with his disciples one day, and he says to them, hey, who do people say that I am? And they start talking about it, and then one of his followers, Peter, says to Jesus, hey, Jesus, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And Jesus is like, bingo, Peter, you're right, you got it. I am the Messiah. Now, in the first century, the idea that the disciples would have had, the Jewish men in the first century was, oh, the Messiah's here? Guess what? It's time to take control. It's time to take political control. It's time to take military control, because for them, the Messiah was coming along, and he was going to overthrow the Roman Empire. He was going to place Israel back on the top of the world, and it was time for them to take control. That's why Jesus was there. So as soon as Jesus is like, hey, I'm the Messiah, they were probably thinking in their minds, let's get the cavalry ready. Let's get the weapons. Let's get the people. Let's come up with a strategy. The Messiah is here, and it is go time. We are going to take control. But then as soon as Jesus says that, He then says, oh, and by the way, I'm going to die. And then after I die, 3 days, I'm going to come back again. That's what's going to happen. And Peter's like, no, that can't happen, because, of course, it's always a good idea to correct God. That can't happen, Jesus. That's not what's going to happen. And then Jesus is like, get behind me, Peter. And he rebukes him, and he says, no, this is the way in which my kingdom is going to come about. I'm going to pay for the sins of the world, and I'm going to come back. And Jesus had this whole different idea of control. And then after he rebukes Peter, he goes in to explain something that is very helpful for you and for me. It's just 2 verses, but it's an idea that I think if we can wrap our minds around this, of what Jesus had to say to us, we can grasp what it looks like for us to really understand this idea of control in our lives. Take a look at the screen, Matthew chapter 16, verses 24 through 25. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. I'm just going to read that one more time. If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Jesus is getting at something here. He's getting at this idea of control, of losing our lives. He's getting at this idea of, hey, there's a greater purpose than what you or I could have ever intended for ourselves. It's something beyond what we could imagine or think of or grasp. And the brilliance of what Jesus is saying here is that he is the one that we should surrender control to. In fact, what we find from the words of Jesus, what he's leading us into is this, is that we catch life when we lose control. We catch life when we lose control. So instead of us trying to control everything so that we can then create our best life, we actually find life, we discover life, we catch life when we lose control. It's a bit upside down. It's not something that really sounds like familiar to us in the way in which we're used to learning about things, but Jesus is saying that we catch life when we lose control. And so what I want us to do is just break down a few words in that statement so that we can really get at the brilliance of Jesus here. So the first word is catch. That we catch life when we lose control. To catch something. Now, I was that kid growing up on the playground, or when we would try to play a sport in gym, that people would normally yell out, "Nice hands, feet." If you don't know what that means, it means I can't catch anything and that I have feet for hands. That's what it means. That's what they would say to me. I was always envious of my younger brother who was a wide receiver, Colton, and he could catch things and I could not catch anything. I was the one that people would pass me a ball and it would hit me in the head. I did not have a lot of athletic abilities, and so this idea of catching is a little foreign to me. Also, ladies never really referred to me as a catch, if you know what I mean. But for some reason, my wife thought that, and I fooled her into thinking I was a catch, so we're good right now. But this idea of catching is a little bit intimidating to us because we're not always the best at catching things, all of us. But Jesus is actually getting at something that we can actually be caught up in the life of Jesus, that we can catch Jesus, that we can be caught into what it is that he has called us to. Look at what he says in verse 24 when he says, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. He must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. What is he saying? Jesus is saying, whatever you deny and whatever you take up is determining what you're catching. The things that you deny and then you take up and follow, that determines what you're catching in life. I don't know about you, but for me, some of the, I'm going to try to say this nicely. Some of the most bothersome people in the world to me are people who choose to come to work and say, I have a contagious cold. but I'm still coming to work today. Oh, I'm going to shake people's hands, by the way. Though that kind of stuff irritates me. It bothers me. I don't need to be around your cold. Stay home. Stay home. Or when you're at Walmart and people are like, hacking and coughing all over the fruit, or at Wegmans, and it's, why did you stay? Why did you have to come and do this right now? I'm trying to buy this and take it to my house, and I don't need this sickness right now. I'm trying to stay healthy. Why? I want to deny what they have, so that I don't catch what they have. But if I don't deny it and I'm around it, I will then begin to take it up and I will follow them into sickness. That's what happens when we're around contagious people with a cold. We don't deny it, we're taking it up and we're following them into it. And this is what happens in our life with Jesus. This is something that we can catch onto, to deny ourselves. To deny our sin nature, to deny things that just bring us self-gratification and self-pleasure, to deny ourselves and take up the cross that Christ has called us to and follow him. Because when we deny other things and then we take up what he has called us to, we then begin to get caught up in his life. We begin caught up in who he is and what he has for us. And he has created us for a purpose. He has created us to live the life that he has called us to. And he has placed something inside each and every one of us that makes us a part of his body, the church. And he's given us an opportunity to play our role in that. And so we deny ourselves and we get taken up. We get caught up in the life of Jesus. I know this may sound cliche or you may have heard this before, but the way of Jesus is caught. It's not taught. It's caught. It's not taught. You see, I think sometimes we think that Jesus came as this teacher who gave us this huge list of do's and don'ts, and he's taught us the way, and do this and don't do that, and do this and don't do that, and do this and don't do that, and I get that. There's a good heart behind that. But if that's all we see when we see Jesus is do this and don't do that, we begin to get this idea that we can fall into his grace and fall out of his grace. We begin to get this idea that he loves us one day and he hates us the next. But the fact of the reality is that Jesus always loves us. And we should allow him to teach us because he's the great teacher, but that requires for us to be caught up in his life, to be caught up in his movement. God is alive and he's at work in the world around us. And so we should be caught up in the life of Jesus, to deny the ways of the world and be caught up in who he is, to be caught up in his word, to be caught up by his spirit, to be caught up in prayer, to be caught up with other believers, and to be caught in this movement where we then do begin to learn and to be taught, but to be caught up in the life of Jesus, to allow him to catch us so that we can catch life. Because we will catch life when we lose control. And that brings us to the second thing I want us to look at, to lose. To lose. To lose control. Now, I hate the idea of losing. I don't like losing. For those of you who are sports fans, that's why I personally just prefer Kobe Bryant to LeBron James. 5 championships, better than 3. But I prefer winning. I don't like losing. I have to admit this, and I've admitted this to my wife one-on-one, and so now I can admit it publicly. For years, I told my wife, I don't like to play games. I hate games. So she would want to have people over. Let's have people over. Let's play werewolf. Let's play Codenames. Let's play Bananagrams. Whatever game. I told her, I hate games. Let's just have people over and watch a movie. Let's eat food. Let's do this. Let's do that. And then I had to tell her one day, it's not that I hate games. It's that I hate losing. I cannot stand losing. And I'm not about to sign myself up for a game that I cannot somehow control the outcome of. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to sign myself up for a game that I have not been able to think through, hey, what is a good strategy as to how I can win this game? If I've not had time to think of that, I'm not going to play the game. I play basketball every once in a while. That's because I have time to practice basketball, and I can kind of figure out what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. But I'm not going to spend the time. So I just told my wife, no, I don't like games. No games for me. Because I was too afraid to tell her, I'm just too immature, and I cannot handle losing right now. I don't like losing. Most of us don't like losing. It's not a good feeling to lose. But Jesus calls us into this life of losing something. Look again at verse 25 when he says, for whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. You could say it this way: for whoever wishes to control his or her life, whoever wishes to control their life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. They will find life. So Jesus is letting us in on something really important here. That no matter what direction you choose to take, whether it's losing your life to Christ and surrendering to Him and allowing Him to take control, or whether it's you trying to take control, you are going to lose. Either way, we're going to lose. But I would rather lose my life to Jesus and be led into the life that He has for me, of a purpose He's placed inside of me, His Spirit inside of me, and then ultimately eternal life, a home with Him, than to lose my life trying to control it and constantly finding over and over again that I can't. That I'm trying to take control of the people around me, that I'm trying to take control of my job, that I can determine how I move up and where I go, or I can take control of how somebody sees me, or I can take control of how someone relates to me, and I can take control of all of these things. And we will constantly find over and over again that we don't measure up, or we actually can't control what other people think of us or say about us or do. But if we surrender control to the one who is in control, to the one who created everything, to the one who died for you and for me, when we surrender our lives to Him, we will then find true life. So either way, we lose. We either lose on one side and find over and over again that we ourselves cannot pave the way for ourselves, that we can't take control, or we find that true life is found in Jesus. That we are to lose our lives to Him, to be caught up in His life, and to be caught up in the life that He has for us. To surrender to Him. Which brings us to the third word I want us to look at: life. This idea of life and what we have and what we've been called to in this life. I was thinking about how we spend our time in our lives when I was looking at this point and thinking about this. And I began to do some reading, and I found a Nielsen study from the first part of 2018. I was a little bit shocked to look at this. It said that the average American in the first part of 2018 spent 11 hours a day consuming media of some sort. Spent 11 hours a day in their life consuming media. And at first I didn't think this was true. I talked to my wife about this. I was like, is this really the case? She's like, honey, you are on your phone all the time. I was like, yeah, I guess that's true. I'm on my phone all the time. And then I began to think, well, at work, I'm on my laptop a lot. And for school, I'm on my laptop a lot. And then, I'm always checking YouTube because I don't pay for ESPN, but I just watch all the clips that are uploaded on ESPN later on YouTube because it's free, and that's the way to do it. But I do that. I watch Netflix all the time. And I'm, man, I guess I probably do spend, part of the media that we consume is actually podcasts count as that. So I started thinking, man, I got all these podcasts. Every Monday I download my podcast. Conan O'Brien just launched a new podcast. It's hilarious. I'm listening to that. The Ron Burgundy podcast launched 2 weeks ago. I'm listening to that as well. And then, I got different things. I got leadership podcasts that I'm downloading and listening to all the time. I got the Elevation Church podcast, Amen and Hallelujah. But, I got this stuff that I'm downloading, these podcasts, that I listen to these all the time. I listen to them at the gym. I listen to them in my car. I listen to them. And so I began to think, man, I got the podcast. I got the Netflix. I got the computer. I got the phone. I got the texting. All this media. I probably do consume about 11 hours a day of media. That's about right. And if you were to think about it, you probably come close as well. And sometimes people look at media, and there's a lot of things about it that are good things, and there's a lot of things that are not so good things. But I just wonder, when it comes to the media that we're consuming, if what we're trying to do is in some ways we're like vicariously living through other people. That we're looking at other people's lives, or listening to other people's lives and listening to what's happening to other people and around other people and thinking, I wish that was my life. And it's not as much of something that's beneficial all the time, but it's just a way for us to vicariously live through someone else and through something else. This personally is even a struggle for me. Growing up as a kid, I'd always wanted to be a comedian. And so I'll be listening to, like I said, the Conan O'Brien podcast, and I listen to a conversation between him and Stephen Colbert. I'm like, man, I wish I was living that life right now. That sounds so cool. I'm like, oh, wait, no, God's called me to do ministry. I have to do that right now. Or, I'm watching John Mulaney on Instagram and following him. Man, I wish I could be doing what John's doing. John was at UB this past week. I wish I would have performed at UB this past week. That would have been cool. But then no, that's not what God has. That's not what God has called. And I'm not saying it's wrong to have dreams and aspirations. Those are good things to have. We should aspire towards things. But sometimes I wonder if our search for life and our consuming of media is that we're aspiring to something that is not even meant for us, or that we're even called to, but we're vicariously living through other people. But Jesus says that life is found in him. Look again at verse 25 when he says, it'll be up on the screen, "For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it." His life for my sake will find it. We will find life in Jesus and in him alone. And he is placed inside every single one of us a purpose, a plan. And all we have to do is to get caught up in his life and lose our life for his sake, and we will find life in him. That's why he said in John 10:10, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." He's come so that we may experience the life that he has for us here and now, to dwell within our hearts, to dwell within our souls and our minds, so that he can take control of those things and lead us into what it is that he's created us for. He loves us so much that he died for us, to pay for our sins so that we could spend eternity with him, but also so that we can now experience the life he has for us, and we can live as a light to the world in whatever direction we choose to go, whether that's in a career path. Maybe you're going through school and you're looking into business or art or teaching or athletics or whatever direction you're in. Maybe you're just working right now and you're not really thinking about going to school, but you're trying to create a career path right now. Whatever direction you choose to go in your life and building your relationships and your career and all of those things, if we discover the purpose that Christ has for us in those things, we will be led into the life that he has for us in those places. Dallas Willard phrased it this way. He said, "How would Jesus live my life if he were me?" And that's something that we can constantly think about if we want to be connected to the life that he has created us for, as we're pursuing the relationships and the careers that we're going into, to ask ourselves this question: how would Jesus live my life if he were me? And if we can begin to answer that question, we will find the life that he has for us. But there's another piece of this control factor that I think we should address, and it's this, is that not only do we try to control our lives, but sometimes we even give up on that and we surrender control to other people. And we allow other people to constantly control our thoughts and our actions and our behaviors based off of maybe a hurt, maybe based off of somebody betraying us or not forgiving us. Maybe it's based off of trying to win someone's approval. And we're constantly allowing other people to control who we are and what we do. But that's not where we find life. And we'll constantly find over and over again that if we're consumed by other people's opinions of us, that will lead to a road of disappointment and being let down. But instead, if we surrender to Christ and find our life in him, yes, we can begin to initiate forgiveness in relationships and all those things, but our joy and our life will not be determined by what somebody else says or thinks about us. Our joy and our life and our peace will be determined by who Christ is in the life that he has placed inside of us. So our life is not found in us trying to take control, and our life cannot be taken away by somebody trying to control us. Sometimes people aren't even trying to control us, but we're letting them control us because we're just so consumed with what they think about us. And we make all of our decisions based off of what that person thinks about us or what that group of people thinks about us because we just want their approval, whether it's a professor or a boss or a group of friends. But Jesus said that once we've given our lives to him, we are placed in his hand and we cannot be snatched out of his hand. So there's nothing that has authority or control over him, and we have been placed in his hand. And we find life in him. And whatever it is that's inside of you, that burning passion for whatever it is that he's called you to, that is something that he wants you to continue to pursue and walk into so that you can find the life that he has for you, because he's come to give you life and life to the full. Because we find this, that we catch life when we lose control. We catch life when we lose control. If we want to find life and life to the full, we will be caught up in the life of Jesus, denying our fleshly instincts and the ways of the world, and being caught up in who he is and being caught up in our time with him, and losing by surrendering to him. And then in doing that, we will find life in him and the life that he has for us and he has intended for us. We can move forward together as his people, being called to his purpose, by losing control. And in doing that, we will catch life. If you would please bow your heads and join me in prayer. Jesus, thank you for what you've done for us. Thank you for going to the cross and paying the penalty of our sin and then coming back from the grave so that we can have life in you, life now and eternal life to come. I pray that we would learn what it means to truly lose control, to surrender control to you so that we can find life in you. Maybe you're here tonight, everyone keep your heads down and eyes closed, and you've never made that decision to surrender your life to Jesus. And you've been searching and searching, trying to take control in so many other ways, and finding again and again that does not lead to life. Whether it's trying to take control through some of the relationships you've pursued, or through substances you went after, or through media, or anything like that. Whatever it is that you've tried to gain a hold of so that you can take control and find life, maybe you're finding over and over again that those things don't lead to life. And you've never made the decision to surrender your life to Jesus. But as you were looking and listening to the words of Jesus tonight in Matthew 16, you found and you saw that there is a life for you, that he has for you. And you want to give your life to him. If that is you tonight, and you want to give your life to Jesus, to lose control to him so that you will find life, I invite you to pray this prayer with me. You don't have to say it aloud. God can hear you. Just pray it in your heart. You just repeat this after me. This is just something that somebody did for me once, and I'm inviting you so that you can do this as well. So just pray this with me. Jesus, I know that I'm a sinner. I know that my desire for control will never lead to life. Forgive me of my sin. Come into my life. I want to lose control to you. I surrender to you. Thank you for dying for me. Come into my life. Make me new. If you're here tonight and you prayed that prayer to give your life to Jesus, for him to make you new, I'm going to ask you to do something bold, but I want to pray for you. If you would just shoot your hand in the air and look at me. Nobody else looking around. If you would just shoot your hand in the air and look at me. Shoot your hand high so I can see you. Yeah, I see you. Just keep it up for just a second. I want to pray for you, okay? Anyone else? Anyone else? I see you right there. I just want to pray for you. Keep your hand up if you can. I just want to keep your hands up for just a couple minutes. See a couple? Awesome. Okay. So just a second. Hands up. This is the best way I know how to do this. I have some information I want to get to you because I wouldn't want you to just do this and then have a bunch of questions. Don't worry, you're not signing up for anything, but somebody's going to come and give you some information. But before they do that, just keep your hands up. Let me pray for you real quick. Everyone else, heads down and eyes closed. Jesus, thank you for what you're doing in these lives. Thank you for what you've done for all of us. Continue to lead us. And I pray I pray that we would all be guided by you, Lord, and that these who have given their lives to you tonight would be guided by you, and they'd feel your presence and your freedom in their lives. Thank you for them, and thank you for what you're beginning to do in their hearts right here, right now. And Jesus, I pray for every one of us here tonight that we would continue to seek you, that we would draw near to you, that we would lose control so that we can find life in you.
Thanks for watching this episode of Vintage. If God spoke to you through this talk, please click on the button titled, How Do I Follow Jesus on our website, and feel free to contact us and let us know what God is doing in your life. Thanks again for watching.